So, what's it like to have a hit song? And can it really change your life? Well, I've been lucky enough to have a few hit songs in my career, and they've come in many different forms. There have been times where I was just the songwriter, and an artist recorded my song, and it became a hit. There have been times where I was the producer, and I produced the artist, and that song became a hit. And then there were also times where I was the artist. When I was with the band 6 a.m., we had a few hits. So what I'm going to talk about today is a couple of those songs and how they really did change my life. And you might be surprised because there are positives for sure, but there are also negatives. And I'm going to tell you about both. But first, I think it's important to establish what qualifies as a hit song. And I think no matter who you ask, you're going to get a different answer. So for the purposes of this conversation, my definition of a hit song is a song that has reached a certain level on the charts of whatever genre that song is in, like pretty high up on the charts, and then has stayed there long enough that a large audience gets to know that song. A large audience becomes familiar with the song, with a lyric, with the title, with the band, whatever it may be. So I think that's a pretty fair assessment of what a hit song is. And you may disagree with that. So if you do, let me know down in the comments. But let's talk about the first hit song that I ever had, because that was a real game changer for me. It was very, very early in my career, and I was struggling. Didn't have any money. I mean, I was broke, could barely pay my rent, and was a typical struggling artist living in Los Angeles. And I had just gone through a divorce, so my life was turned upside down. And I wrote this song called Rest in Pieces about my divorce. Actually, I co-wrote it with Sixx. And it was a very, very personal song to me. Had no intention of ever giving it to another band and having a hit song with it, but that is actually what happened. A band called Saliva that was really successful at the time. They had that song Click, Click, Boom, which was a big hit for them. Another song called Your Disease. Another one called Always. They were doing very, very well. So they decided to record Rest in Pieces for their next album. And that was a really exciting thing for me because I had never had one of my songs recorded by another band. So even though the song was very personal to me and a big part of me wanted to keep it for myself, I couldn't pass up this opportunity. And I'm glad that I didn't, because that song changed my life. So how did it change my life? Well, it got chosen as a single. And as a songwriter, that's what you're always hoping for. You know, getting an album cut is cool, but it isn't going to generate the kind of income unless that album just sells millions and millions of copies. So what you really are hoping for is that you get your song chosen as a single, which means it's going to get radio play, and every time it's played on the radio, you make money. So this song gets released to radio, and it starts climbing the charts, and it climbs and climbs and climbs, and before you know it, we're in the top 10. And it was so exciting for me because I had never had a song climbing the charts in my life. This was a first for me. So as far as changing my life, here's what happened. First off, I had mentioned I was dirt poor. And because of that song, because of the success of that song, I was offered a major publishing deal. Now, for those of you that aren't familiar with what a publishing deal is, when you're a songwriter, or when you're a writer of any kind, even if you're writing books or whatever it may be, there are publishers out there that will basically invest in your talents. They will invest in what you're doing, in exchange for a part of the pie, basically. So I signed a co-publishing deal with Warner Chappell, which meant that every song that I wrote, they would get 25% of the income off of that song. And in exchange for that, they would give me an advance, which was very appealing to me at the time because, like I said, I had no money. So think about that. Here I am, living in Los Angeles, barely making it by, and all of a sudden, I'm offered a large sum of money and a major publishing deal with a major company. Talk about life-changing. I remember at the time, my bank account was overdrawn by like $6 or something like that. And when I got my first check from Warner Chappell, it was a lot for me. It was like $250,000. So I remember going into the bank and having the teller say, yeah, you're overdrawn by $6. And I slid this check across the counter and I said, I think this will cover it. And it was just such a moment for me. I remember walking out of that bank and just breaking down in tears because it was just everything that I had been working so hard for finally paying off. And talk about a life-changing moment. I've never forgotten that. And I swore on that day that I would work as hard as I could for the rest of my career so that I never, ever was in that position of struggle again. And I did. So that was obviously the first and most profound change that happened in my life as a result of having this song become a hit. But there were other things that happened too. As soon as that song started climbing the charts, my phone started ringing nonstop. Record labels, managers, everyone in the business was all of a sudden paying attention. And that was something that I wasn't prepared for, but it was a pleasant surprise because I had spent years trying to prove that I was worthy of being in the room with these, legitimate artists. And all of a sudden, I was getting that attention. People were paying attention to what I was doing, and I was getting opportunities. All of a sudden, because of this publishing deal, my publisher was putting me in the room with other artists to write songs for them. And it really was a turning point in my career. Now, looking back on it, if I were to give any advice to up-and-coming artists or somebody that has just gotten their first hit, it would be this. Seize the moment. Take advantage of all of these opportunities that are going to come your way because they don't last forever. There's an ebb and a flow to this. So you may feel like you're riding high at the moment, and you are, and you should celebrate that. But just realize that everything that goes up comes back down. And this ride that you're on is not going to last forever. So make sure that you build great relationships during that time. Do your best work. Deliver. Because there's going to come a point where it all slows down again. That's just the way that it is. It's not a bad thing. It's just the way that it is. So that was the story of my very first hit song. And it really did put my career on a different trajectory. Now, let's shift gears here. The next song that I want to talk about was probably the biggest song in my career. It's the song that I'm most known for, me and my band 6 a.m. And that's the song Life is Beautiful. Life is Beautiful really changed my life in a lot of different ways that I wasn't really prepared for. And I'll explain that. When we released that song, we weren't even a band at the time. We had just, the three of us, me, DJ Ashba, and Nikki Sixx had gotten together, and we'd written a bunch of really cool songs, and we had recorded them. Never had any intention of being a band. we were just kind of messing around, you know. We were just having fun writing songs, and we loved being creative together. I definitely did not have any plans of being the lead singer of Sixx AM at the time. I was just producing this stuff and helping write this stuff. And then I would sing the demos just so that we had a voice on the demos. The goal was always to replace my voice at some point with a real singer. So I didn't have any intention of even being in Sixx AM. I was just kind of hanging out with my pals, writing music and producing songs. So when we released Life is Beautiful and it started climbing the charts, I was taken by surprise. I think we were all taken by surprise, to be honest with you, but I especially was taken by surprise because now all of a sudden it's my voice on these songs, and I had no intention of being the singer in a band. Well, it started climbing the charts, and that particular song went all the way to number 2. It never reached number 1. Actually, it did reach number 1 for a couple of hours on a Sunday afternoon, but it really peaked out at number 2. But the cool thing about that single was it stayed on the charts for a long time. And that's what you always hope for. I mean, you always hope to climb the charts and get to the top of the charts, but what you really hope for is once it gets there that it lasts for a long time. And that song, I think, was on the charts for, I don't know, something like 52 weeks. It was crazy. So, how did that change my life? Well, number one, I went from basically being a behind-the-scenes guy, you know, writing, producing, mixing, doing stuff like that, to all of a sudden being the frontman of a rock band that was starting to explode. And something that I wasn't prepared for at all was that all of a sudden people knew who I was. People started recognizing me because we had a video out and we were doing a lot of press. So there was a lot of exposure. Yeah, it was quite a life-changing time for me. And it wasn't really something that I was necessarily comfortable with. But I did learn to enjoy it. I did learn to enjoy, you know, getting recognized here and there. And I was always extremely flattered by it. But that was something, you know, that I never could have planned. And, you know, I just did the best that I could to adjust to it. You know, when I was younger, I had hopes and dreams of becoming a rock star. But I had long since put those dreams behind me and was very, very happy with my career producing and writing songs and just working with other artists behind the scenes, being a studio guy. So all of a sudden to have to go out and be the frontman of this band and tour and do radio shows and all of that stuff, that was a huge life changer for me. It was incredible. But here's the hard truth about it. When these record companies give you the money to make your next record, they expect you to deliver more hit songs. Of course they do. They have to make their money back. And the only way they're going to do that is by having hit songs. They need to sell records. You need to sell records. And hit songs are just not that easy to write. You know, you can write a great song, but it doesn't mean it's going to be a hit song. There is something very unique and something so elusive about a hit song. And a lot of times it just feels like the luck of the draw. And it is. So we found ourselves writing song after song after song and sending it to the record label, and they would just start scrutinizing. And they would be like, this isn't a hit song. This isn't good enough. And it's not like they knew. That was just their opinion. What they were expecting was for us to just keep writing the same hit song over and over and over again. And that was completely unappealing to me. So with that in mind, if you're in this business and you've just had your first hit song, there's something that you have to be careful about. is that you don't hold everything that you do after that up to that standard, because you will infinitely be disappointed. And trust me, the industry itself is going to be holding you to that standard. And that can be a lot of pressure. A lot of pressure. And when you're trying to be creative, being under pressure is probably one of the worst things for that creative process. So you have to be prepared for that. I mean, enjoy it while it happens, but don't hold yourself to this unrealistic standard, because it's unlikely that it's going to happen again and again and again. Like I said at the beginning of this conversation, I got very, very lucky, and I've had it happen a few times in my life. And I'm very grateful for that. But I look at my career as a whole, and I'm as proud of a lot of the work that I did that never became a hit as I am of the ones that did. And I think that's important for you to keep in mind if you are pursuing a career in this business. And if you're not, I hope that you've enjoyed these stories. And if you have, please hit the like and subscribe button and leave me a comment below. I read every single comment, and I try to respond to every single comment. So let me know what you think, and thank you for listening.